And up next, we're looking forward to two amazing young influencers, both engaged with the increasingly interconnected world of innovation and societal change. Although those of us who grew up in times gone by thought of commerce, government and civil society as very separate institutions, the millennials who've grown up in a world of constant change and with awareness of global challenges have intuitively already connected those dots. They're looking for a more meaningful life and more meaningful careers, in the knowledge that the next generation of leaders will inherit enormous debt and inequality. These young leaders are finding market-led models, using people power and all other means at their disposal to ensure prosperity in the future. I'm absolutely delighted to introduce Shivi and Danny. Shivi Jervis is the creator and presenter of Digital Futures, a YouTube channel with more than 1 million views, investigating the issues and opportunities that matter most to millennial innovators and young tech leaders. She works with major news organisations like Reuters and major technology organisations like O2 Telefonica. She's been named leader of the future of Britain, and she's here in conversation with Danny Bartlett. Danny is head of communications and marketing at Wira and founder of whosboard.com. Danny started life at O2's Think Big, where amongst many other things, he started a movement to address youth political apathy and to give youth an authentic political voice. whosboard.com. This has been instrumental in a U-turn decision by the government to ensure citizenship learning in schools is statutory. Shivi and Danny, I'm really looking forward to this. Over to you.
Thank you. Okay, so is my mic on? Can you hear me? I feel like I'm projecting. Perfect. So Danny and I are here to give you rapid-fire insight into what meaningful means to us millennials. And just to give a little more context on why we're up here and we're doing this, is that with Digital Futures, it's become a platform, this video series, for a lot of millennial trailblazers. And what I'm doing now in the next step, and I'd urge any of you who want to get involved to give me a shout, is actually we're going to be fronting a new video series that showcases 15 trailblazing millennials in the UK and Europe whose ventures are very specifically using tech for social good. And that's why this topic is fantastic. And thanks to Paul from Havas and Sharon for having us up here. Danny, I wonder if you want to tell folks a little bit more about your background.
Sure. So the kind of what we do in terms of the social entrepreneurialism space is that the great thing about Wira is Wira UK is our kind of commercial ventures accelerator, but also 50% of all of the startups that we actually invest in are social startups as well. So it's a massive privilege to my job, and it really kind of relates to my background as well, that we really do kind of invest in social ventures, and actually a lot of them, and I'll probably go into it a little bit later when we're asking the questions, but a lot of them are now not only creating positive societal change, but they're also creating a large amount of wealth as well. So it seems that you can get the two these days.
Yeah, exactly. And Danny and I recently were fortunate to unveil the largest piece of research in the UK on the social makeup of the startup ecosystem here. And what we found is that 55% of startups are founded by millennials. But more critically, from a qualitative aspect, given that we talk to these guys all the time and we've got businesses ourselves, is that they're creating businesses that have a social footprint. That's just a default thought and process and kind of state of mind, rather than, oh, I wonder if my business could have some social value and meaningful value. Also, the Havas report, which is absolutely fantastic, also points out the most meaningful brands contribute to our lives at all levels. And it sort of talks about personal well-being, but collective well-being as well. And we are seeing quite a lot of that in the people that we talk to. So let's dive straight in. Danny, do you think millennial business leaders are thinking quite differently about purpose? And are they really shaping a new way of doing business?
I think they are. I think that a lot of millennials really have kind of, since 2008 especially, I mean, I remember when I first graduated, I was going to go and do a master's degree in New Zealand. I thought I had sort of like my whole life's kind of planned out in front, and then Lehman Brothers went boom, and then that was it. My whole plans had to change. So it was very much acting out of necessity, and I remember getting sort of really good degree, that sort of stuff, academic awards, and then I was like, what do I need to do? And I remember my dad sitting me down saying, son, you could either go down the academic route, but he said that the world has changed. And he said you really got to think about the next steps. So I think that out of necessity, a lot of young people are, sort of jumped in. And I only started at a degree, but then just started serving people sort of tea. I become a runner at a post-production company. But it was grab anything and work up from there. I think that being faced with that reality, especially when you're at university and you're thinking, right, this degree is going to launch me. It's going to tee me off. Then I'm going to go into employment and work my way up. And just all of that just absolutely faded with the financial crash. So I think that a lot of millennials were faced with that and then did act out of necessity. And I think as a result of that as well, they saw a world that, they don't want to see the same mistakes done again. And it's not kind of like, poking a stick at the baby boomers or any other generation, but I think it's more inherent within millennials to shape businesses and grow businesses where hopefully they're going to be a lot more long-term, less short-term, and they're going to be a lot more sustainable.
Yeah, and I think we both feel that our generation has inherited a deeply unstable economy, which to some extent has created that drive to have to be enterprising and to want to be seen as actually creating employment and not just working for someone. I think one thing that we come up against quite often when it comes to what meaningful means to millennials is also some of the stereotypes about this demographic. And so it's sort of, some folks say 18 to 30, some say 18 to 34. I'll say 18 to 34 so that I'm still in that demographic. But one of the stereotypes we come up against is that millennials are self-obsessed, apathetic, selfie generation. I mean, personally, I hate selfies. So, but also that we're entitled and heavily demanding. And I think Danny and I feel quite strongly that we come across very enterprising young people who actually very prepared to put in the hard graft. Would you say these stereotypes are fairly damaging then for the next wave of thought leaders?
Yeah, hugely. I do think that, I think that the kind of digital age has not helped. I think it has helped in a way because it's given, especially a lot of millennials are digital natives. They've grown up not just kind of using technology, but really understanding its power. But I think you also get this term entrepreneur that's thrown around quite loosely. I like to call them the Instagram entrepreneurs, where they're not. It's kind of more of a facade than it really is. I think a lot of millennials aren't really willing to put in a lot of massive amounts of work. But those that are doing such an absolutely fantastic job. And so, I do think that every generation has some bad traits about it. Like I said, the baby boomers, the millennials apparently blame them for everything, but that is not, that's not true at all. But I really do think that some stereotypes within some generations are true, but it seems to be these days almost go grotesque, do you know what I mean? Like cartoonish, the amount of kind of millennials that is kind of stereotyped out there.
So I want to pick up on something you said, something that is a little bit contentious, but that's exactly why I want to bring it up, is that actually there's a spate of campaigns, whether it's governments or brands, that are saying, you too could be an entrepreneur, you, and you. And so every 23rd-year-old that I come across, every third one, is a self-professed CEO or CTO, and often not really having an understanding or value for experience, and maybe perhaps doing that from within a business and then going on to launch their own, but in fact I'm going to skip 3 steps in between. So is there a danger to this entrepreneurial culture? Can we go quite OTT here?
Massively, and you can't skip steps. I mean, you can, and for some people it has worked when they've shot from the hip, but I get this a lot with, and I'm not naysaying sort of people from a graduate program, but after they've kind of finished university, they've gone into a graduate program, they're tapping me on the shoulder almost like they're doing me a favor. And it's like, you haven't walked the walk. You haven't gone through that. And as a millennial, I'm more than happy to work my way up, go through the layer cake and to get there at the other side. And I think just because we live in a fast digital age where things do move so ridiculous, especially working in an accelerator, seeing the rate of change is astonishing. But you still have to put in the work, the time, the research.
And it's very easy to be seduced by the billion-dollar valuations and the IPOs and exits and to assume that's what happens. Yeah. But 85% of startups fail within their first 18 months, and that's the side that you don't often hear about. And we talk to some of these people, and they cry on our shoulders, and it's quite a dark side to that industry. So Danny, in terms of how millennials look at brands, do you think that we actually buy from brands that we don't see aligned with our ethics or our societal purpose?
I think that it's a fine line, really. I mean, I was reading some of the stuff in there saying that only kind of 3% of people in the UK only care about 3% of the brands that actually exist. I mean, that's staggering. I'd love to know behind. I'm going to do a lot more reading and see why that is. But I think that millennials just expect businesses these days to have social values inherent within them. And if they don't, they're going to question. If not a customer, but then certainly the millennial working within that business, they're going to go around and go, well, why aren't you doing something? And I suppose a lot of millennials see that yeah, again, like I said, going back to that kind of post-2008 world, there's an expectation for a lot of businesses to have them. But I think that a lot of people maybe from older generations or from bigger businesses see them more of as a drain of resource. They see a CSR program almost like an extension to something that they don't really want to run. But if you do it really well, you can bring benefit to the business and to your customers. So again, the one thing, and again, I'm not using this as a platform to kind of advocate sort of what Telefonica and Wire have done, but we've just, and again, I wish I could tell some details, but we've just had one of our startups that have gone through the last 2 years of acceleration, the acceleration program with us, just about to launch a product across 5,000 stores around the world, and it also does a lot in terms of social impact. And it also innovates. It's also the great thing about Wire is it's those entrepreneurial behaviors that are inherent within a lot of entrepreneurs. We have such a fantastic mentorship program set up that a lot of people within Telefonica come into Wire to mentor startups. They take those behaviors back into the business as well. So, and because 50% of our businesses are social businesses, you're getting all of that great teaching going back in. So it's very much a two-way street, which is brilliant.
It is. So I've now had the signal to go, get off the stage, because we need to keep time, and I promise to do that. I think just to round off, what we've seen is that a lot of millennials are recognizing that actually social value and embedding that into the DNA of your brand is simply good business. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.